I think
if I can just add something to the conversation, I don't have a party, so because I don't like politics at all. And I don't like blue and red, and I don't think that solves any of the issues, because public safety and the need, like I said, to be safe and to have justice is a human right. And everybody deserves that, and everybody craves that. What I do want to say, and I mean that with absolute respect, because I think that Chesa is, he's clearly brilliant, and what he said was, very smart, very intelligent. However, I just want to point out to you, and this is something that I think people should think about when they think about the positions that they want to occupy. That's just my humble opinion. Before becoming the district attorney, Chesa never dealt as a prosecutor with a victim of crime. He never looked at a 5-year-old that was shot and had the job of bringing that victim justice. He never talked to a 13-year-old that was discovered in a hotel with a 50-year-old raping her, but calling her a prostitute at the same time. He cares about a lot of things, but the lens that's missing is still the victim's lens. It's completely missing. And I think you can call it a progressive movement, or you can call it a conservative movement. I don't care for any of those labels. What I do care about is when you go to a doctor because you have a heart problem, you want them to understand hearts. You want them to understand, as a cardiologist, to help you with your heart. When people occupy district attorneys' positions, but they never had the actual passion to protect somebody who's been victimized, maybe they had the passion, but they never practiced it. Practice is different than talking about issues. Being in those rooms, seeing the pain is very different. So that the entire speech you heard left out victims and decided to excuse that by saying, oh, by the way, the Constitution doesn't have victims. How does somebody become the district attorney if, like I said, if a big part of what they care about is not victims, the rights of victims, the rights of the accused, which are there and absolutely should be protected, and the right of the community? It's not because any of us here are bad people. It's because of, like we said, where we come from, what drives us, what makes us who we are, and our training. We trained for many years for this job. We learned mistakes. And so that's also important. I'm just saying that justice is not a theory. It's not for people who want to experiment, because the experimentation is about people's lives. You should come into this job knowing exactly and having faced and looked in the eyes of victims. That hollowness, that pain that somebody ripped your soul out, you have to have seen it. If you haven't seen it, you can't protect it.
Just want to be really clear, DA Stephan, I did talk a lot about victims, and the policies and practices that I'm most proud of from my 2.5 years in office include a tremendous expansion of resources for victims, include asking in every budget I presented to the mayor for more money for victim services. Never once were we given $1 by the mayor. Include policies that, frankly, I wish your office would follow when it comes to respecting victims, like guaranteeing court-certified interpreters to accompany victims when they want to watch court proceedings, not just when they're being used as a piece of evidence to give testimony, like not conditioning victim services on cooperation with prosecution.
We don't do any of that, so you're just making assumptions. We are an office that safeguards victims.
There is no county in the state. There is no county in the state of California, except for San Francisco under my administration, that provided court-certified interpreters to victims who wanted to watch their cases proceed through court.
All the time. Well, victims are at the center of what we do. So are
when they want to cooperate with prosecution. And I'm not talking about you, DA Stephan, but conservative prosecutors across this state jail victims of crime so that they can be available to testify in court when they are needed. They are treated as pieces of evidence, not as human beings. I'm not talking about your office. I'm talking about the policies and practices and laws that allow material witnesses, including victims of sexual assault and domestic violence, to be incarcerated in cages. You want to talk about respecting victims? I'm not talking about your office, but that is what conservative, traditional prosecutors do so that they can secure convictions to send more people to prison.
You know that we debate an actual case. If you have a case, then I will call as the incoming president of the National DAs Association and find out if somebody is actually doing that. We don't provide services.
Thousands of cases.
Based on victims. And I just want to tell you that victims don't just want money and services. They actually want justice. They want to know there's justice. So just asking for them to get services, which is really important, and a part of it doesn't mean that that satisfies our duty to get them justice. Next week, what I'll be doing is one of the major murderers, rapists I convicted. The new law decided that he gets elder parole at 50 years old. So I had to call all my victims that we promised them justice and tell them, guess what? There's a new law, and now you know what you think, what you feel, how scared you are of this rapist murderer doesn't matter, because we're going to have to go to a parole hearing because he's now considered an elder, which is an insult to me and to everybody else who's 50 or above. It makes no sense.
I know that Cully had another question prepared. I know there's a lot of hands that would go up if we gave the opportunity, and I would love, certainly, as you can tell, to continue this conversation. But as moderator and in respect for the other panels that are coming and for the fact that all of the speakers really responsibly abided by the time limits throughout, I'm going to wrap this panel up.